Mother's Day is almost here, and you can get her the most beautiful time-tested gift around. A watch she can wear every day from Movement. Whether mom's into classic dress watches, rare and refined ceramics, or tried and true bestsellers, Movement has something she'll love. And right now you can save big on the best Mother's Day gift ever with up to 50% off site-wide during Movement's Mother's Day sale at mvmt.com. Again, that's up to 50% off at mvmt.com.
We made this.
Hello and welcome back to We Are Starfleet, a Star Trek podcast where we are talking the latest from Strange New Worlds. We're part of the We Made This Podcast network, covering not only everything Star Trek, but also all things TV, film, music, and pop culture. My name is Mike Slamer, and with me is Ian Buckley. Ian, hello, welcome back.
Hey, greetings. How are you?
Doing good. What do you think of this podcast takeover that our colleagues are doing with us?
I feel like Captain Angel must have felt, or not Captain Angel. Who was the Orion last week? He had a mutiny on his hands. I feel like I've got a mutiny on my hands.
Yeah. We need to get in there. We need to get in there and maybe spark some new changes. I'm on board. Let's do it. We're taking over. We're taking back over our own ship. In this episode, we are going to be talking the Elysian Kingdom, episode 8 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. And we're taking on a fun little stroll through the Castle Enterprise, it seems. What do you think of this episode in terms of how our story of the season has played out so far? It's kind of hitting a pause button, huh?
It is, and I want to say up front that I had some concerns going into Strange New Worlds, knowing how short the seasons were going to be, that we wouldn't get some of these kinds of, like, I thought the days of us getting this kind of an episode, the kinds of episodes we've been getting the last few weeks in Strange New Worlds, like, I was kind of worried those days had fallen by the wayside because there's so much of a focus on serialization and moving the story forward. There's just no opportunity, and the seasons are so much shorter. It hasn't felt like we've had in previous live action Star Trek shows the opportunity to have a lot of standalone adventures, even just opportunities to have kind of like silly adventures. Like this was essentially the equivalent of having a holodeck episode. Like, right, we might as well have had a holodeck episode this week on TNG or DS9 or Voyager. It has that kind of energy to it, and I'm glad that they're doing this kind of episode in Strange New Worlds. I'm glad to see this kind of episode, especially feeling so much like TOS, which we both love. So far, we've gotten like 2 episodes this season that have really been very reminiscent, really tapped into a lot of that original series energy. That said, I did think this week's episode was a little uneven for me in the execution.
Okay.
I thought the emotional framing story was really strong, and I thought that there were a lot of fun elements throughout. But it was some of the humor was a little hit or miss. Some of the pacing was a little slow for me, and just some of the bits, some of the gags were a little surface level and a little one note, and then it was just kind of a repetition of those notes without any kind of interesting iteration on those ideas. So on that level, it wasn't the most successful episode for me, but I still definitely liked it overall, and I really loved certain elements of it. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I have to say, I agree with you a lot on, especially like the pacing. Like you said, it was that one note. It was a little bit of a parody on the actual person. So instead of Pike being the brave, courageous captain, he's the kind of the backstabbing, conniving, weaselly courtesan of the king. So it was an interesting play, and yeah, the one note is the best way to describe it for me. But otherwise, it gets high marks for delivering a beautiful story with Dr. Mbenga. We get a little bit of a hyper focus on his character. And especially, I've mentioned this before, I'm a little unsettled by the ethical dilemma of Dr. Mbenga keeping his daughter inside the transporter buffer. I think that there's definitely some story to be told there, but I actually do like where they went with this here, going for that emotional, let her go kind of an aspect. And, we still get that bittersweet ending to it. So, yeah, a little uneven for different reasons because it brings you in with the laughs and then, drops a heavy weight on you emotionally.
It does. I think it does a nice job, though, of sort of the setting up the episode in the beginning. You're right, kind of right away. You're being told that, like, okay, this episode is going to really focus on this father-daughter relationship. Were you surprised that they kind of wrapped up this story already in Strange New Worlds? Or
Yes.
at least I was expecting this to be a sort of a B plot kind of for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I could have sworn that, somebody would find out, there would be an issue, Starfleet would come down and we would get like a legal story out of it. That's kind
Sure.
of where I thought this might be heading, but it didn't. We went here and basically resolved it.
We did. Yeah. It did feel the emotional satisfaction of the story was there for me. I think the actor whose name is escaping me, who plays Dr. Mbenga, is doing a great job. I was joking with you a little bit on the Discord earlier that like he does sort of seem to come from the Sonequa Martin Green school of like whisper acting, which is great. It just means that like I have to turn the volume up when he's in a dialogue scene and the volume down when they're blasting phasers in the hallway.
Yes, yes. It's always like that. It's Babs Olosunmokun
Thank you.
is the actor, Nigerian American actor.
Yeah, he's doing a great job. All the stuff with him and his daughter, especially this week, has really worked for me. I found very moving. I was just a little surprised that they kind of seemingly have concluded that little arc that they were doing with this character, which is fine. Presumably, they'll give him more and better things to do. It's just
Yeah.
a little surprising. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the thinking behind that was. It's interesting. I just don't know why this particular end to this story couldn't have happened a little further down the road.
Okay.
Maybe they thought that it just wasn't one that this story wasn't one that they wanted to
Carry on.
stretch out.
Yeah.
But they clearly have like other sort of ongoing character B plots that they are clearly continuing to kind of kick the can on, like the Chapel and Spock dynamic. Like it seems very clear that there is going to continue to be an ongoing kind of checking in on the sort of the tension in that relationship there.
Yeah.
and what's going on there. So I just sort of figured this would be the same.
Yeah. And we kind of pivoted. We took a rest stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that said, I like the way they wrapped up their story. I'm glad on the one hand though that like you said, there's some potential for other storytelling there with this dilemma that they have there. But on the other hand, I'm kind of glad that he's not got this millstone kind of hanging around his neck for the rest of the series.
Yes.
He can just do other things now.
Yes, yes. It was a great way to start this episode out, where we open with Dr. Mbenga and the story, and it brings the audience back to like, hey, yes, he has this daughter and he has to read to her, and you kind of get the implications just from this cold open. If you were to consider this a bottle episode, I think you could easily get somebody into Star Trek with an episode like this, where it's a little bit lighthearted, a little bit comedic, but then it brings you that big, heavy, emotional paperweight. But yeah, it's a great intro to this particular episode. And what did you think when Dr. Omega comes up through the turbolift, opens the doors, and boom, he's in the storybook?
I dug it. It definitely did remind me of a Q episode where you have this extraordinarily powerful, we learn extraordinarily powerful, essentially godlike being that's
Yeah.
just out there hanging out in the void of space as this nebula. And we've seen elements of this before, a super powerful intelligence that is putting the crew through some sort of trial or test,
Right.
or just is having fun, is just being kind of mischievous. We've had that too. That was more of a sort of a TOS era kind of like super powerful galactic being. The sort of 90s Trek, I think, tried to give a little bit more motivation to the super powerful beings that were messing with
Right.
humans. But yeah, you get this sort of, at first I figured, like Mbenga maybe did, that there was something going on with him, something medically, and I liked the way that he just logically worked through the steps of the
Yes.
problem. He scanned himself, then he scanned Chapel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, elevated dopamine levels. What can this mean? Where, like they are being engaged in some way, like he sees Hammer who's not being affected, and that gives him some more information, and then
Right.
he makes it about, I've got to get to him so that we can figure this out together. And I just liked how it progressed logically, step by step. I thought his personal through line through this episode was what I was most engaged by.
Yeah.
Some of the other shenaniganery that was going on around him was more hit and miss for me.
Yeah, let's talk about some of that chicanery, and especially the hit or miss stuff. You've got Pike and Ortegas who seem to get teamed up here, and right out of the gate with this episode, when we come onto the bridge, before the whole twist and turn into the fantasy medieval land, when they're on the bridge, they are leaving the nebula, and the banter almost immediately starts, where Lieutenant Ortegas at the con says, "Are you going to say the thing?" And of course, Pike smiles and says, "Hit it." I like the in-universe nod to the fun thing that captains do.
Yeah, and I like some people may disagree. I kind of like Ortegas's, she's got a very casual vibe. Like, I wouldn't want everyone on the bridge to be like this, to be very clear. I just don't mind that we've got one character on the bridge who's like this and has this kind of rapport with the captain. And Captain Pike is clearly a pretty cash captain. Like, as much of a
Yeah,
Boy Scout as he is, he clearly likes having a very close, more cordial, casual
right,
relationship with his mates. It very much feels more like the sort of privateer, buccaneer kind of captain on the high seas, sort of, who has this sense of camaraderie with his
yeah,
crew, rather than this like more strict, more hierarchical, quasi
right.
military, Starfleet structure that we see in the kind of the more TNG DS9 era of Trek.
Yeah, that's a great shout out. And Pike himself, in that scene, he's sitting there and clearly grateful to have the opportunity to just scan a nebula without anybody shooting at him, or
Yeah.
actions going on. Yeah,
Of course he jinxes it, but also
of
like he's
course.
kind of echoing, at least my thoughts as an audience member. I'm sure other audience members, fans of Star Trek have thought that too. Like, yeah, wouldn't it just be nice to just like hang out in space and have like nothing like really hugely catastrophic going on that you need to worry about? And that is kind of what what this show is trading in. Like I've started to think of it as like it's a cozy show. It's a
Yeah.
show that just like the stakes in an individual episode can get fairly high, the personal stakes for characters, but it's just a show you can put on and just like enjoy having a Star Trek adventure week after week. It's a cozy show, man. It makes me
Yeah.
feel good, even when we have an episode like this week's that I think is like a little uneven in some areas. It's like I I kind of wanted a TOS series,
Yeah.
so like it's just it. TOS had some mediocre episodes too, or some uneven episodes too. Like, I'm really gonna get that mad about the fact that we got like an episode of Star Trek that's only like fine.
Yeah.
No, I'm not gonna get that. I'm not gonna get that mad about that. So, I want to celebrate it for what it is.
Yes.
While we continue to discuss some of the things that maybe didn't work so well for us this week.
Yeah, of course, of course. No, Ian, you hit the nail on the head with all of it. It's very much tuned to the spirit of Star Trek here. Personally,
Especially that loosey goosey '60s vibe. That's the kind of
oh
captaincy
yes,
that we're seeing. It's that loose, casual '60s vibe.
yeah, and you can see where Kirk gets it from. With all their characters kind of sort of playing the opposite of who they actually are on the bridge. They really lean into a lot of the facial acting and all the dramatic overtures. You have La'an, normally very stoic security chief, right? And here she is as the dainty dramatic princess. Oh, my king, my king. And it leans so hard on that wild campiness that it's, like you said,
Mother's Day is almost here, and you can get her the most beautiful time-tested gift around. A watch she can wear every day from Movement. Whether your mom is into classic dress watches, rare and refined ceramics, or tried and true bestsellers, Movement has something she'll love. And right now, everything at Movement is up to 50% off site-wide during their Mother's Day sale. A watch is a gift that celebrates all the time you spent with mom, and a Movement watch is even more than that. Movement uses industry-leading materials for their fresh modern watch designs, from technically complex ceramics to vintage-inspired style, all for an incredible value your wrist and wallet will both love. And with one-size-fits-all convenience and fast free shipping and returns, it's a stress-free shopping experience. Save big on the best Mother's Day gift ever with Movement. Get up to 50% off site-wide during their Mother's Day sale at mvmt.com. Again, that's up to 50% off at mvmt.com.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
yes, it makes it a little weird and a little funky, just like TOS was. But that's what we were all kind of expecting from this and I think wanted. And I had a lot of fun with this. And even though some of it kind of just went on too long, we talked about the one note, right? Especially between Pike and Ortega's characters, like always kind of quipping and banting back and forth. I don't know. Funny at the first time, funny the second time, not so funny the third.
Yeah, and honestly, some of it comes down to just certain lines working better than others, or certain line readings working better than others, or certain performances feeling like they're dialed in to the right frequency.
Right.
Like some of the characters feel like they're approaching the material with like different levels of campiness, and so because they all don't all feel like they're coming from the same place, kind of stylistically or dramatically or comedically, it leads to some unevenness in some of the scenes. I really, like I said, I really like all the stuff that Mbenga is doing, but it does sometimes feel like he's just sort of like pausing a little bit in the story for some more antics.
Yeah.
And then we're moving on to the next thing. And so it lacked a little bit of narrative drive for me. I do want to say, though, I know I mentioned this to you before we recorded. I did watch this episode kind of broken up in fits and starts, so I may, when I see it from start to finish again, all at once, I may feel a little bit differently about the pacing.
That's fair. That's fair. I do think it's interesting that in the 1960s series, and of course in TNG as well, that a lot of these kinds of episodes where they wind up in like a Roman world, or amongst the Nazis, or in a medieval fantasy land, it's because the costumes and sets are already in use on the studio
Right.
lot, so it was cheap to write it into the story. And this tells me that they very purposefully went and made an episode like this, because they don't have that kind of stuff just laying around anymore.
Right. This wasn't, Pike and the gang visit the city full of gangsters, or the planet full of gangsters.
Yeah.
It's just, it's very intentional. I thought they did a pretty good job of, sort of turning the Enterprise into a fantasy land. Knowing that this is a sort of a godlike power, I wouldn't have minded them turning it up a couple more degrees.
Yeah.
The physical transformation of like the hallways and the spaces.
Yeah.
They went kind of like halfway in a lot of these spaces, but not in a way that was like that really popped to me visually. I would have loved it to get the illusion to get maybe more and more complete the closer
Right.
he got to his daughter at the end, or something like that.
Yeah, that would be
just
really compelling.
Yeah, just they could have punched it up visually a little bit, I thought.
Yeah, definitely. Although,
Only on the design front, not really. I thought all the costuming was great.
oh yeah. The puppy that La'ana's carrying around is hilarious. And Ortegas's outfit that she changes into, it's this, it really reminds me like the swashbuckling sword fighter type.
Yeah, of course, it's what it's supposed to do. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and we do get a tiny bit of action where we get to see Ortegas as this swashbuckling sword fighter in action, completely disarming whoever the evil people were. Honestly, the whole bit where you had Ahura as the evil queen kind of fell a little bit flat. Like, I understand why she was there. I understand that it worked in the context of the fantasy story, but at the end of the day, largely all of it could have lifted out with very little impact on the actual message of the story. So it just served to kind of give us more to look at, give us more to think about, and give us more to talk about, but it didn't really land any particular impact for me. So it was kind of like, this is funny, but please, I want more Mbenga and more of that.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I'd have to, on rewatch, pay closer attention to that, whether there was any other additional purpose to that character being a part of the story, because it's not like this is an adaptation of a story that actually exists in human literature, right?
Right.
There's no common, there's nothing that the audience is going to be looking for and expecting. This isn't Alice in Wonderland.
Exactly.
Nobody's wondering where the Red Queen is. There's not an expectation of like, well, there must be this character here. It's a part of this fictional story in this book, a character who we don't have any frame of reference for, so they just as easily could have not made that a part of the story. And Mbenga kind of has enough other information to piece together what's going on, and at least as of right now, my recollection, I can't recall a piece of information or a bit of plot movement that she really provides for anyone. So
she's a bit more of like a roadblock to
exactly.
them, just to serve as conflict.
Just a sort of a temporary obstacle to just kind of pad out but it just ends up feeling like it's padding out the length of the story. And I'm glad that we live in a streaming world where we can have a 50-minute episode, but this felt like one that could have been 42.
It does give us the opportunity, though, to, part of the conflict involves another character, Chief Engineer Hemmer, who isn't transformed by the total change of the Enterprise, right? And it's because he's got those telepathic abilities, which I'm not, forgive me, but I'm not quite clear on if I should already know he had telepathic abilities or if this is the first time we're finding out about it.
They mentioned the precognitive abilities during the first time we meet his character. This is the first time that we really kind of get a sense of it's a little bit more than just precognition, clearly, that he's able to do or to tap into. He seems like maybe he's able to do a little bit more as a sort of a passive conduit, rather than, maybe he can't do a lot very actively, but he can facilitate this kind of thing that he does in this episode, maybe a little bit more easily than, say, I don't know, a Vulcan who also has telepathic powers. But obviously Spock, despite his Vulcan training, was not able to resist this entity in any meaningful way, it seems. So it's clearly distinct and different from what a Vulcan can do with their mind. Whatever it is that he can do. So that's interesting. We're learning more. I'd have to rewatch the episode or episodes where the Anar come into play in Enterprise. I don't remember them other than the fact that they make an appearance. I couldn't tell you what they do, if anything.
Yeah, it's unclear, but this episode does kind of shed a little bit of light in that he has these telepathic abilities wherein he sensed this consciousness during the switch and he was able to resist it. So that's an interesting play, because I wonder if he can, not mind control, not like maybe not necessarily move objects or anything like that. Maybe it is a precognitive thing, but maybe there's some hidden ability that we are about to learn about.
Well, this is already seeming to be a hitherto unseen ability. Like, this is a new ability as far as we know.
Yeah.
I mean, the extent that we know about his abilities really is, that joke that they make when Uhura and him first meet, where she says something about, I hear that Anar have precognitive abilities, and he says, I knew you were going to ask me that. That's sort of all we've gotten up to now. This is a whole slew of new information.
Yeah, and he's kind of funny too. Like, I love how he leans into the story.
I like Hemmer. Yeah,
he leans into what's going on. He leans into the wackiness of it, and that's something that kind of like it makes me smile. It helps his characterization. He makes lots of references to science, liking science. I like this. It's a lot of fun.
And I really like how he uses these scientific tools to perform quote unquote magic tricks. And it does. I don't remember. Is it an Arthur C. Clarke quote or an Asimov quote? It's possible, any technology sufficiently advanced will be indistinguishable from magic.
You got it. Yeah, it's he hits that right there, and I love this little abracadabra bit.
Yeah.
Got a kick out of that.
Yeah, I like Hemmer. Happy to see more of him in the show. He's had plenty to do this week after, I don't think, being in last week's episode.
Yeah. What's interesting is I'm seeing of course, everyone has a complaint about something, right? You can't just enjoy it, right? So one of the things that I'm seeing online feedback on the show, Strange New Worlds, is that we're not getting enough of X character. We're not getting enough of Y character. And a lot of feedback for modern Star Trek, for better or for worse, focuses on, big story arcs with select characters, and other members of those crews get left by the wayside. So this show seems to be responding to some of that feedback in a more direct way and giving us these heavy episodes that focus on maybe 1, 2, or 3 different characters going through various subplots. So now it's kind of like, Chief Engineer Hemmer, we want to see more of him. That was episode 2, guys. Like, there's a whole show to come. Can we just be patient? And here we get some really good characterization. We get into it, and I think that's a really good thing that a show like this can do, because it keeps you engaged. Like, who are they going to focus on next episode? Who are they going to focus on, a couple weeks from now? It keeps you coming back as fans of those characters, and that's what builds, I think, the fandom in a big way, because it's not just attaching yourself to the franchise or the show, but people you can actually relate to. Like, people can relate to Lieutenant Ortega's character. They can relate to Spock. They can relate to Nurse Chapel, and that goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I ranted.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. Yeah, no, you're right. I like that you have episodes where you can focus a lot on one or two individual characters, get to know a lot more about them, have stakes that are personal and important to them, and learn about them through how they respond to the circumstances in which they find themselves. But yeah, I agree. You do have to have a certain level of patience, and there's a degree to which you're just never going to please everyone
for sure.
all the time. It's just not possible. So you kind of have to just put that aside. I will say that it is something that I was, like I alluded to earlier, I said I was worried that in a series where you're only looking at a 10-episode season, like, you might get characters lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
But the approach that they've taken so far has avoided that. I think there's maybe only one or two characters that we really haven't yet gotten sort of a deep dive on. Ortega's is one of them.
Yes.
We haven't really gotten a deep, but I think it's also based on what's happened so far. It is a very safe assumption that we will get that at some point.
Right.
And I like that. I like that we can sort of rely on, for me, even if I don't know, even if I know that I don't have the answers about that character, or if I'd like to see more of that character, I like that sense of feeling like I'm in good hands watching the show, knowing that based on how they've done things so far, that's coming eventually.
Yes.
I'm not going to be waiting around in vain.
Yes. I don't know why, but Spock as the rogue wizard had me dying. I thought he looked absolutely hilarious and also pretty sexy in a weird roguish kind of a way.
Right?
Yeah. Like punk rock grunge. He's the grunge king we've all needed this whole time.
Yeah, he's definitely got a nice energy to him in that wizard mode that he finds himself in. He does look a lot more sort of elf-like. How can he not in a sort of a fantasy setting with pointy ears?
I did think it was a little bit of a fake out, because I kept expecting him to be like, aha, no, actually, I've been Spock this whole time, and I was also unaltered because of his Vulcan telepathic training. But that was not the case. So when it continued, I couldn't help but just laugh at it, because I don't think you're ever going to see Spock like this again.
No, I'd be very surprised. And I yeah, you're right. I thought it was interesting. I too expected when he initially pops up, I was like, oh, well, Spock's obviously going to be unaffected by this. He's Spock.
Yeah.
Interesting that he wasn't, and it was Hemmer instead who was the one that Mbega had to rely on. I liked that. Before, if you'd sort of told me the outline of the episode and had me guess which member of the crew they would have be resistant to this entity's actions, of course I would have guessed Spock.
Mm-hmm.
I would never have guessed Hemmer. So I like that they went with a less obvious choice, and that as a result we get to learn more about this other character who isn't a legacy character who we already know a ton about.
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void were prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
The other thing that was a little interesting to me, we have Una, who comes in as the Huntress, and I don't know about you, but it made me wonder if they're ever going to get invited to one of those D&D sessions that the crew of Discovery do.
Oh, I'm sure. That would be fun.
Oh, man. I would not be surprised if they all did like live action D&D.
LARPing? Yeah, sure.
I can see it. I mean, they already got the costumes.
You're already kind of doing it. Like, don't you like you're already kind of doing that every day?
Yeah.
You show up on set. They chose to include a character who isn't a legacy character that we already know a ton about in this episode. I like that they aren't always making it just be like one or two characters who solves all the problems every single week. They're really spreading the love around to all the different characters. And I'm not taking a shot at Disco. Obviously, we both like that show.
We do, yes.
But it is one of those criticisms that we have levied at that show.
Yes.
Of like, hey, does like this one character have to solve every problem every week, no matter what? Like, do they have to be the only person who can do this? I really like that, like, Pike isn't just the only one who can do it every single week. He's had some moments to shine. But honestly, some of the moments where he shines the brightest is when he is supporting others in their,
that's a good point.
In what they're doing.
That's a good point. I have often heard of Star Trek The Next Generation be referred to as competence porn.
Yeah.
Where the idea being that everybody is competent and capable of what they're doing, and you're seeing people perform at their best. And I get the sense that Pike's Enterprise is very similar, because they are all very competent, and it's nice to see all these crew members, even Cadet Uhura, learning on the away mission. That shows competence. That shows skill in training and discipline. And it was really rewarding when she overcame her fear, and it delivered on a great storyline for her. And that was episode 2.
Yeah. And it's I think it's Kurtzman who, but it may have been one of the other producers who said in a recent interview, but pointed out that, this show takes place in Star Trek's great age of exploration that essentially kind of begins with Archer and goes through the sort of original series era, and then kind of ends by the time you get to the TNG era. That kind of the borders of the Federation are kind of set, and most of the Alpha and Beta Quadrant has been explored. There's subspace relays everywhere. Messages can get back to Earth basically instantaneously. There's just a different energy to the exploration of the galaxy once you get into the TNG era, whereas this is still kind of loosey-goosey, Wild Westy, but also, in the context of the military, this is an elite ship, an elite crew. This is kind of like, if you think of it almost like the Special Forces, right? Yeah. Like, they're the guys that get to grow their hair long again. They're the guys that are kind of like, they're doing things in maybe a slightly less rigid, regimented way, because they're all the very best at what they do, and so they're given the latitude to act with an additional degree of sort of independence that is earned because of how competent they are at what they do.
Yeah, and it gives Lieutenant Ortegas the right to be that kind of casualness on the bridge.
There's a level of sort of understanding that Ortegas is allowed to do that because she's Ortegas, not because every lieutenant who walks on that bridge is allowed to do that.
Yeah, it's great to see. It's definitely becoming very much in line with that competence porn. Seeing Dr. Mbenga and Chief Engineer Hemmer, two department heads who probably only cross paths in, briefings and in regular staff meetings, but otherwise, how often do they get to work together?
Yeah, when's the last time in all of Star Trek you had Deep Space Nine, of course. It's like, when's the last time you had the chief engineer and the chief medical officer go on an adventure? Oh, right, my favorite Star Trek series, like every week. But that specific point aside, like the fact that we are having these two characters who are just, they're not on the bridge every week, but they are driving the adventure this week. I really like that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And, the episode's a little cheeky, at the same time. So it gives us that bright humor to kind of keep us there, and make it feel good. But listen, we got to talk about this turn, because once we got into the theory that the entity was existing and they started piecing together the puzzle, then they went down to Mbenga's quarters because they figured out that it's his daughter that is the mystery stone, that is the MacGuffin driving this plot the whole time. And Ian, when they first postulated the idea of the entity, when Chief Engineer Hammer says he felt the consciousness, and they pieced it together that it was the nebula and that something was out there, right? Did you think that maybe potentially somehow it was Nakia who had become the nebula?
You mean before she eventually did?
Yes. Like it was her the whole time, because
no. I thought, sort of as we were getting further into the plot, that she probably had something to do with it. I mean, certainly once she was no longer in the med bay, it was like,
exactly,
okay, like this has got to be something to do with like her. And then, he pieces it together once he realizes that, like, oh yeah, the story is unfolding differently. So like it's being manipulated and changed, and the episode literally began with the scene of the two of them talking about how she wants to be able to change the way this story goes so that it can end differently. And of course, in the end, he's faced with a choice that mirrors the choice that the character he's portraying faces in the storybook, and they come up with a middle path that is pretty in line with the sort of things that we've seen in Star Trek before, the sort of elevation from a corporeal form to a non-corporeal higher life form kind of thing. We've seen that. I thought it was handled pretty well. Like I'm always moved by Mbenga's the actor who plays Mbenga, by his work with this other actress who plays his daughter, whose name I also don't know. I'm sorry. I think their scenes always work really well on me. I think I've mentioned on the podcast, I lost my dad this past year. So like any kind of like dad stuff is just always gonna get me. Probably forever now, but especially now, like just any dad stuff, I'm such a sucker for. So I really liked the way that they handled, what could essentially be it's a sticky thing. Like it's his kid, like the episode began and I thought to myself, like, oh my God, this kid's so cute. They better not kill this goddamn kid.
My God.
And they they don't, but they do, end that that particular existence. Like that existence of that consciousness comes to a kind of end, and evolves and changes and is now like, and when she rematerializes, like she's no longer a child. Like his child is gone. He loses her in the sense that like she's never, she went off and had a child of her own, but he was not a part of that.
Right.
Like he misses all of that. So it is still a sacrifice that he's making.
It is a death in many ways.
Yeah. And so I that added a level of emotional weight to the story that I really appreciated. And I liked all of that. Like I said, I thought the frame, the emotional through line, his story and Mbenga's story was what worked for me throughout
Yes.
this episode, and it was really only sort of the occasionally too silly stuff that was going on around it that kind of detracted a bit for me.
Yeah. It's as you said, the emotional through line. It really underpinned this episode nicely. It had me laughing at the beginning. It had me sobbing at the end. So
Right.
it's a bittersweet ending. It is kind of one of those. It's it's up in the air. Whether she's dead. Metaphorically speaking. Physically speaking. She had this terminal disease, incurable disease. And Dr. Mbenga had her in the transporter buffer in order to keep her alive until he could find a solution, find the cure, but he was unable to. And to keep someone in that transporter buffer, it's a prison. Whether the person can feel that or not, know it or not, it's unethical. And that when that nebula came in, when that entity came in and sensed this consciousness, it definitely speaks to the omnipotent ability, in addition to pulling these stories and making them come to life. And I feel like one of the things, and again, Ian, I love this episode, I love this show. These are minor notes in the grand scheme of things, but sometimes explaining some of what that omnipotent being is, because it feels like we just accepted right out of the gate that it was not ever going to harm Nakia. And to be fair, of course, how are you going to argue with an omnipotent nebula?
Right. It did feel a little bit like, trying to think. There have been some other kind of gaseous intelligences that are super powerful. I know there was one in Next Gen, and I think there was one in TOS. But just you do not get any sense really, except at the very end, of the kind of personality of this giant nebula and what its intentions are. And at the end of the day, they do just kind of have to take a little bit of or Mbenga, really, nobody else is involved in the decision. He has to take a bit of a leap of faith, but he also doesn't really have much choice. It just works out.
Yeah. But it is one of those compelling storylines that I think Star Trek does pretty well, where taking your cast of characters and dropping them into a completely random situation, and you still come out with something. Overall, Ian, I think this was a very solid episode. We didn't break any boundaries. We didn't land any planes. We didn't crash any starships.
Yeah, it was solid overall. This was I think, I don't remember whether it was this show or some other, but I was talking to someone recently about, I know it was definitely the show. And I was basically saying, like, look, if this is the worst that these episodes get, like, we have a good show on our hands. And like, I feel like I can say that about this episode this week. Like, if this is the low point that we have to expect from Strange New Worlds, like, we're fine. We're okay. Like, there's 2 more episodes left. Like, they're not going to completely shit the bed here, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. I mean, maybe it won't be some kind of life-altering season finale, but why would we want that? That's not the story that we're here for.
Yeah, maybe we'll get Cybok or something. Like they'll do something with it. But yeah, I think also, since we're not building towards some sort of grand cataclysm that is facing everyone in the universe, like, there's not like, I'm looking forward to the season finale, but it is kind of funny, if we were in Discovery or Picard, we'd be like hurtling towards a conclusion to some big story and trying to figure out, like, oh, what's going to happen next week. And instead, it's just kind of like, oh yeah, next week we're going to tune in to see some completely different adventure, and that's going to be cool.
Yeah, and it all works. It all works somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Cybok, you mentioned it. I gotta ask you. I've seen some things online that says he's gonna return. What do you think?
Oh, he's definitely going to return. They've hinted at it now, and well, I shouldn't say they. Kurtzman's hinted at it in interviews since, that they have some sort of plan in the works for Angel and Cybok to return.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts, like any theories on where or maybe why Cybok is getting involved again?
As far as why they're getting Cybok involved again, I don't know. I mean, it makes sense, I guess, because you do at least have, unlike the Michael Burnham character who was invented up, out of whole cloth, and you just kind of have to buy that there's this important formative relationship in Spock's young life that he just has never mentioned. We already know that Cybok exists. We already know that Cybok has been out there in the galaxy doing whatever he's doing.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void were prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
And all we know is that he's just never encountered Kirk and company. But that's all.
Yeah.
So there's clearly a lot of canvas to work with there. So as long as they paint me something interesting, I'm on board. It's fine. I'm not offended by it.
Yeah, I think it's just good fun. I feel like we're just putting on our imagination hats and having a fun romp with, familiar faces and some familiar friends, right?
Yeah, it's weird to say the antagonist of one of the films is a deep cut, but it's Star Trek V, it is a deep cut.
Yeah.
Who watches that movie? Nobody knows who everybody knows who Khan is. Nobody knows who Cybok is.
That's true. It's very lower decks of them to do something like that, if I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, it does feel almost like a lower decky kind of oh, really? Cybok. Huh, okay. It almost feels like they would bring that. I would be less surprised if they brought that character back for a comedic cameo in lower, obviously Lower Decks takes place in a different era, but in a Lower Decks style, a cutaway or flashback or just a reference to Cybok. That's kind of how I would expect Cybok to return to the Star Trek fold. But it makes sense. There's nothing illogical about it.
Ah, fascinating. All right. Is there anything in this episode or over the course of the last 8 episodes that we've missed that you want to talk about?
I guess it sounds weird to say I'm excited to see where this goes, because it's not like there's a thrilling conclusion that we're looking forward to. Maybe we'll get something really kind of exciting and mind-blowing and stakes-raising in the finale. We certainly did in more episodic series past, so that's fine. I am kind of curious what their philosophy is creatively behind what is a Strange New Worlds finale. What is a finale in this new era of episodic Trek?
Right.
How do you raise the stakes, or it is hard to imagine that they would make it just another episode, but I have no idea what to expect.
It's kind of nice, right?
Other than I think if I had to put my money down, I'd say Gorn, and or Angel / Cybok, something with that. But it would be one of those two threads that have already been kind of introduced this season. I would say that will probably be a return in the finale, or maybe we finally see a Klingon.
Ooh. I don't know.
I don't know.
My
It's one of those three.
I have this working theory that the reason they are characterizing T'Pring and Spock's relationship is that now with the reveal of Cybok and him being at the rehabilitation center that T'Pring is working at, and then of course you have Captain Angel involved, I suspect that there's going to be maybe a kidnapping thing happening with T'Pring, and this leads to the overall animosity that T'Pring feels towards Spock as she starts to blame him, and then that whole thing happens over the course of season 2.
I could see that. I'll have to rewatch Amok Time to see what T'Pring's relationship with Spock is like at the point that episode takes place. It's certainly a much chillier relationship than they have in this show.
Yeah.
Which is, that's just how they wrote it back then too.
Sure.
I'm not going to read too much into that. But if they decide to kind of take that as like where she is at that point, I wouldn't be surprised if we do get the sort of unraveling of their relationship over the course of this series.
Yeah, I can definitely see it happening, and it would lead to like that kind of character cliffhanger in a finale rather than having this big action set piece where the world's coming to an end or something like that. It's just like a character's world is coming to an end in one way, shape, or form.
Right, like he and Chapel maybe stay up really late one night working on a research project or something, and one thing leads to another.
Yeah.
It could be something like that because I want to see it.
The tension is palpable in their scenes together. And
it is, but I gotta say, like, it's a genuinely, like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but like in a Star Trek series, they have managed to create what for me is a perfectly compelling love triangle. Like, I like Spock and T'Pring's relationship as it stands right now. Like, it seems much healthier than it did in the original series.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like I really like that the show is not making her a villain at all, and I think that makes her character so much more interesting and adds so much more tension to that relationship kind of triangle that they've got going on there.
One thing I will say is I've been kind of noticing that they're not touching on Pike's knowledge of the future, if you will.
Yeah, they've kind of put that on the back burner, which I am fine with.
Okay.
I, definitely don't need them to be constantly checking in with that week after week. I think it's fine if it's just a thing that is informing this character and is in the back of his head, and I don't really need us to like do much more deep exploration on it personally.
I'm trying to decide if I really want them to talk about it any more than they already have, or if what they've done was enough, or if maybe they need to examine it a little bit at key moments. But it does seem like Pike is kind of coping with it and living with it and finding ways to see through it and work here in the present.
He's focused on what matters, which is his duty and his crew and the here and now. And yeah, I think the more interesting way to explore it is by confronting him with circumstances where he maybe takes an unnecessary risk because he thinks only about the fact that he knows he himself has this fate, and it ends up putting someone else in danger. Maybe even someone else gets hurt or killed because of his I wouldn't mind exploring like what that does to a leader. I think that's an interesting question. But other than that, unless they really come back and unless they come back with a strong take, if they have an interesting, compelling story that they want to tell,
yes,
exploring a facet of this foreknowledge, great. If they're just bringing it back up just to remind everyone that, hey, just so you know, this is still a thing, I'm not interested. I don't want that. I'd rather they just never talk about it again if that's what they're going to do.
I think I'm with you on that. I think I'm with you on that. Ian, we have been chatting now for a little bit.
We have.
Is
Yeah.
there anything else you want to talk
No,
about?
I'm done.
You're done.
Done talking to you about this.
Okay. Would you like to talk about your podcast, The Way, and whether or not you are going to be talking Kenobi?
Yeah. We are talking Kenobi. We're recording the episodes discussing the first 4 chapters of Kenobi have not come out yet, but they will be coming out soon. They have been recorded and are being edited, and we are recording our not our series wrap up, but wrap ups of episodes 5 and 6 coming up. I'm going to record that hopefully this Friday, so that should be coming out soon as well. Now that I am back from vacation and Tim is back from his honeymoon, I will be able to get these recorded and edited in a much more timely way. So if in case anyone was wondering, yes, there are more episodes coming. No, I have not forgotten. That is going to be appearing on your podcast feed, probably at random. So just keep subscribed if you aren't already to The Way, our Star Wars discussion podcast here on the We Made This network. But you can also hear me on Movieversaries, Real Talk. I pop up on Podcast 616, a whole bunch of other things I'm sure I've popped up on here and there. I just kind of say yes to everything that comes across the Discord. When people are asking for guests, I'm usually like, yeah, sure, I'll talk about something for an hour.
Yeah, absolutely. I gotta say, I just finished chapter 4 of Kenobi, and I'm enjoying it. I think it's
good.
I think it's pretty fun. It's not, it's not changing anything fundamentally, so it's an adventure.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's solid.
Yeah,
it's not bad.
Yeah, no,
I don't want that to be damning with faint praise. I want to stick. I realize that like talking about Star Wars has gotten so fraught, but like, yeah, I like Obi-Wan. I'm not really going to apologize for that opinion. It is not the best piece of Star Wars entertainment that's been created, but it is better than a fair amount of other Star Wars content that has been created. So,
there it is.
It's good. It's fine. Just try it and see if you like it.
There you go. Try it and see if you like it. Also, if you haven't already, you can check out at Starfleet Pod on both Twitter and Instagram for this show. We are Starfleet for episode discussions, episode postings, and Star Trek chatter and what have you. And you can interact with us on the show, maybe ask questions if you have them, or give us some feedback. Tell us what you thought. Remember to subscribe and give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And if you want to help out the We Made This podcast network, please consider supporting us on the Patreon if you go to patreon.com/We Made This. Folks, my name is Mike Slamer, and with me has been Ian Buckley. Ian, it's been so good to chat this episode with you. I am so lucky to be able to have this particular kind of a show because we've been doing this for 2 years now.
Yeah. It's hard to believe it's been 2 years. COVID did such a number on my perception of time,
right?
Which was already a little bit wonky anyway. And hard to believe, but it's been a good 2 years. I've been in this we started podcasting like the month that we moved into this apartment that I'm in, and it's been 2 years. Weird.
Wild, man. Well, there's a ton of Star Trek that we're going to be talking about, especially on We Are Starfleet, but also Make It So and Rarely Going, which cover both Star Trek Picard and the animated series over on the We Made This podcast network. And Star Trek isn't all we're discussing, so we'll give you a taste of what you might have missed on the network in a moment. Until next time, Ian, take us out.
Yeah, everyone, we'll see you next time on We Are Starfleet.
Da, da, da.
Elsewhere on We Made This.
Shipwrecked and Comatose, a Red Dwarf podcast.
This was one you requested, Matt. Was there any particular reason?
Part of it is because
it meant that I got to get onto Out of Time.
Oh, okay, so that was the reason, right.
Yeah, no, so yeah, ask me that question again when we do episode 2 of season 10.
I think I know what you're talking about on that particular episode that you might want to be on.
Oh, it's episode 1, yeah.
Yes.
But also, I think I'm quite a big Rimmer fan, and I always find Rimmer-centric episodes interesting, dependent on their quality. And this and the next episode, and I don't really want to go into something that is more relevant for next episode.
Free with this month's issue. Talking about double bass, did you ever play double bass?
No, I have touched a double bass, but I've never actually played it. I'll stick with a 5-string Warwick, and I'll be all right.
The only time I've ever played one was the short period I was at university. They've got one in the music room there, and I used to play it on its side like a normal bass. Although I'm nowhere near as big as Pete Steele from Typo Negative, so it was even more ridiculous when I did it than when he does it. Movieversaries podcast.
Yeah, I like, A New Hope. I like Strikes Back. I like The Last Jedi. I think Revenge of the Sith is pretty good. But Rise of Skywalker can just...
Rise of Skywalker is terrible.
Yeah,
terrible.
You know what I mean?
On our podcast, we're big fans of The Last Jedi, and we do not like Rise of Skywalker at all.
Oh, maybe I'll fit right in then.
Maybe you'll fit right in.
But yeah, I can offer maybe a controversial take. Like, for example, I think The Return of the Jedi is not good.
Get out. Get out.
Hey, man, this is my podcast. You get out.
Check out all of these shows and more on the We Made This podcast network.
Okay, round 2. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.